Welcome to New Mexico Restaurants Now, where you get the inside scoop on the food scene across New Mexico. This episode is brought to you by NMRA's Chef Table sponsors. These businesses provide the most generous level of support to help keep our restaurants protected, informed, and successful. So thank you to Benny Keith Foods, the Food Industry Self-Insurance Fund, Heartland Payment Systems, Shamrock Foods, Cisco New Mexico, and U.S. Foods. We wouldn't be here without you. I'm Carol White, CEO of the New Mexico Restaurant Association, and our guest today is Neil Rowe with Peppers in Roswell, New Mexico. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it.
It's so fun to have you here. You know, you and I have known each other for many years now, and we don't get to see each other often, maybe once or twice a year, but I love your restaurant. When I'm in Roswell, I do always go to your restaurant. And
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's right there. You can't miss it, right?
Right downtown. Can't miss it. 6th and Main.
That's right. So right on Main Street, it's right there. And it's been there for how many years?
We started in early July of 1990. So 31 years, going on 32.
That's wild. That's great. Yeah. And I know you've expanded lately, but let's talk a little bit about yourself. Okay. How did you get into the restaurant industry?
Like most young people, we want to, at least for my generation, your generation, we work to make money so we could do more things without going to our parents for this and going to our parents for that. Well, my father and a couple partners had some restaurants called Black Angus, not the Stuart Anderson. This is way, way back from, and on the East Coast. I'm a Miami native, and that's where I was at the time. And one day he said, hey, we're going to go up to Palm Beach, which was maybe an hour away from Miami-Dade. And he took me to this restaurant. This was their biggest restaurant. They did a lot of training there. And he walked me onto the middle of the floor when he spotted some busboy that he was familiar with. And he said, I forget his name, but this is my son, Neil, teach him how to bus. And he walked away. And I was 13 years old, 13.
Trapped.
So for some reason, it just worked for me. I knew how to get fast right away once I knew the basic steps, and I worked and made some money, and it was fun. And they would, whoever was staying there, they had a little apartment right behind this restaurant. So we just stayed there. And after that, subsequent to that, I would go up with him on busy weekends, holiday weekends, and I would bus. It was a lot of fun. And during that time period, one of the nights, they do about 600 dinners a night. So it was very large. Remember, you're in Palm Beach. They're big communities. So the expediter basically broke down, and all of a sudden I heard my father's voice through that's how they did it back then. You'd hear your name if you were a server, and you knew, no, we need you back here to come get some food. And I said, that's strange. So I kept working. And the next time I went in with bus tubs, there he was, not dressed for it, and probably very warm in there in that kitchen. And I watched, I said, I can't believe he's doing this, but he did. I've seen him cut steaks there. It was just amazing how much I learned just watching him there. Anyway, that ended abruptly when another older busboy and I got caught in the walk-in where the beer was, and we kind of got caught messing with the beer, should I say. And so at 14, I found a job in my neighborhood at a little Italian restaurant. And this job, busing, this is the late 60s. So let's see, 67. So we got $1 a night, the bussers, and 15% of the waiters' tips. So the waiters got $2 a night and the rest of the tips. That's what it was back then. That's what it was like. So every Tuesday, if you worked or you walked in there, you'd go see the daughter who ran the front of the house. And at the end of the night, you'd say, hey, it's Tuesday. I'd like to get paid. They go, oh, no problem. How many nights did you work last week? 4. And she'd open that old register and count out $4 to me. So if I got my tips that night and that $4, that was a really big night especially for a Tuesday. And another busser and I would always go down to this deli and have our ice cream sundaes. We were young. It's not like we could go out and party. But anyway, that's how I kind of got into it. And then I had restaurant jobs from then on. Uh, Not only, but I won't get into all that, but a lot of restaurant jobs, bussing, waiting tables. I even washed dishes, which I absolutely hated, but I respect how hard it is of a position. So moving forward in my life, I went ahead and realized I don't ever want to do this business again because I knew how tough it was. And I went to school in Tampa, Florida, University of South Florida, was a finance major, ended up at a bank in Miami, and loved my job, did very well there. And after a few years and getting to a little past my mid 20s, I could tell it was time to slow down. I mean, this is the 20s. I'm in my 20s, in the 70s in Miami. That usually tells you everything right there. I just could tell it was time to maybe do something else. The hardest thing to leave there was actually that job. It was that great of a job. However, my parents were already in New Mexico, so were my younger brothers, including Adam, my partner in the restaurant. And um, they were about on a development we have out west of town to build a restaurant, among other things that they do, and we still do to this day, which is primarily real estate of different kinds. The land out there that we developed, and then we have things we lease out there like pastures and properties in town. So we've kept doing that part of it, and eventually we got to Peppers because I was involved in two restaurants before that. The one that we built, and then the Roswell Country Club. And this goes back to 1980. So I've been doing it 41 years, and I've definitely declared myself the longest, oldest running full service restaurant owner in our entire town. Everybody came after us. Cattle Band came after us, and they're a chain. Most of the restaurants are chains, but especially with independents. So it's been a long, long time, and it's been a lot of fun. And Peppers is doing really well post pandemic, and I attribute that to people just dying to get out, literally to get out again and live life like they remembered it a year and a half before, when we were in lockdowns in our state. And I know how familiar you are with that, but it's been wonderful. Even without the large parties, because we really couldn't get back into banquets, Carol, until July 1, when she opened us up pretty much all the way. Even without those banquets, which are a major part of our business, we've been caterers for a very long time, including going back to that first restaurant. We had a banquet room that held 400 people. For Roswell, that's pretty good size. And so we've been catering for a very long time and got into off premise when the country club thing went away. Um, and we saw that as the next thing for us to do. We're not, because there was so much catering at the country club, all the weddings and a beautiful place. So we decided to get into off premise catering, and that was around 1995. So we're still doing it, but we didn't have it quite yet. And our numbers since mid-March of this year are all better than we've ever seen in our history. Even 2019, which 2018 and 19 were our two best years up to that point. This year's not done, but if we stay open all the way through December, it's conceivable. And our restaurant is just like everybody else is just like us, by the way, because I eat out too. And I know a lot of the owners, and I keep good friendships between people in my industry and in our town. And I think that's a really good idea, but not everybody believes that, by the way. But anyway, everybody's doing tremendously. But if we get through this whole year and it stays similar to what we've seen, and keep in mind, if it wanes a little bit, we're getting back into more banquets. So it may balance it out where it stays here. We'll have our best year ever without January, February, and half of March. That is almost hard for me to believe hearing myself say that, but that's how well it's gone from the revenue perspective.
From July 1st. So that is interesting. And I've heard that a lot. And I'm almost unbelieving. I'm like, are you sure you're not adding in all of your federal relief money into that number? Or, and everybody's like, no. And And you guys are doing it with fewer employees, not by your choice, but because there's some incentives out there that are keeping our employees from coming back to work. Is that right?
It's exactly right. In fact, Carol, after I finish telling you what I know and how well it's gone for everyone, at least down here, and Ruidosa I go to frequently, and they're all packed, can barely take people, and they have the same situation.
The
It's
pent up
so bad.
demand, yeah, the pent up demand from people, having to eat at home. I say, having to do dishes all the time. Oh my God, if I have to make another meal, I'm going to go crazy. So, so I think there's a ton of pent up demand. And I know, every restaurant I go to has a 45-minute wait here. And so I'm glad to hear that same thing is happening in your neck of the woods.
It is, however, the same thing's happening in our neck of the woods as far as just not having enough staff, not not either shift, lunch or dinner, every single day we're short. Now we get by, but as soon as someone calls in sick, which is another issue, missing work or calling in sick just because I don't think they'll fire me, because they see how short we are
Right.
and we appear desperate because we are. And that's been a really tough and tiring situation for us anyway. Very, very tough. We're glad to have the business, and we're maybe more fortunate than others because we're still open Monday through Saturday, which is what we've always done. Others are now that we're in a a day week are now down to 5, many of them. Others, they're real good for breakfast and lunch because they've had the same people there that have done breakfast with him, this particular restaurant, for years and years and years. So they open every day early for breakfast. They do lunch. Nights depends on who's going to be there, and either hangs a note saying, sorry, we're closed tonight due to a lack of staff,
Wow.
which happens more often than he's open. That's another scenario. The other one that I kind of just mentioned, it's a restaurant owner with two different restaurants, and they would open 6 days, one closed on Sunday and one closed on Monday, which I thought was a very good idea so they could borrow people. There's a lot of
Oh, that
call-ins
is
on a
good.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was smart. And now they're both closed on Sunday and Monday. And they're still an hour earlier at closing, which used to be 11 and now they're at 10. And we have done that. Instead of going to, we were 10 at night, 11 till 10 at night. Now we stopped taking tables, I should say, Carol, at 9 o'clock. Uh, our people are so beat up. We need to get
Yeah.
them out of there and let them get some sleep. And the ones that are working hard, paying for this in a big way to the people that are sitting home not doing anything, because they're wearing out. The ones that do want to work and get forced to do doubles, Carol, and I'm sure you've heard all this,
Oh, yeah.
but from my perspective, it's been pretty tough. Tough.
Well, it is a tough time, and we're just hanging on until that federal subsidy goes away. And just I'm going to give you a couple of numbers here. There are 78,000 people on unemployment, meaning that, and I know this is not just our industry. We have something close to 70,000 people in our industry, at least pre-pandemic. So all of those people on unemployment are not in our industry, and we don't need all of those people to be in our industry. So I'm just saying, and there were enough restaurants and other businesses that closed. And so, I mean, I know of the restaurants that closed, there were 5,000 jobs that were lost. So just, I mean, I want to make you a little bit more comfortable that yes, once the federal subsidies go away on the unemployment insurance, I do believe that people will be back into the industry in a big way. So, just hang on for that little bit. Tell your folks to hang on for just that. We only have about a month to go before that goes away. I think it goes away September 6th. So hang. That's all I can say. And
And
for those,
thank you for saying that. But we know we're close. We see the light at the
yeah.
end of the tunnel. We've already gotten a few people that are actually quality. So it's getting a little better and a little better. And then we go backwards a little bit at times because some of them that they were hired, they're just starting, and all of a sudden they're not there. They just stop showing up.
We've heard that
So
a ton, is that people just don't
yeah,
show up anymore. You give them the uniform and then they never come back and give it back to you. A little bit
correct.
better in smaller towns because you're going to see them again or possibly know their parents or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's been a real problem. Let's talk a minute about your food because you have food that people have been coming to you for years. What's everybody's favorite on your menu?
We have a very extensive menu. It's a
Yeah.
little smaller now, simply because we would like less waste and a little bit easier for our kitchen to get food out because of all the reasons we went through. And yes, I just want to go back because I think that was a really important point you made. It's going to get better. Some of the restaurants, because they're only open 5 days instead of 6, they're starting to see improvement right away. And one of their managers told me that his goal is to get open again on Monday. And his goal is to get people to go out on their patio because they just don't have the staff. So they don't even use it.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's those type of things, but it is going to get better. And even now, we've all gotten so good with so little. Um, I think for the most part, the good restaurants down here in Roswell are doing pretty well, and our guests aren't suffering. If we're really hit hard, or a couple people not showing up, there might be a few tables in your whole shift that were disappointed, and they'll let you know about it. But our locals get it. They keep coming back. They encourage us as we table touch all night or all lunch, and they're telling us, no. We'll say, well, when we check on them, they'll say, no, everything's great. It's perfect. And we're just so glad you're open, and please stay open. We get those comments every day, Carol. So it's not that bad on the guest. It's tough on our staff working a lot of doubles, and it's tough on us. But I think overall, at almost all the restaurants, hopefully statewide, but down here, again, when we go out to eat, uh, we'll notice that they did pretty good. And when we travel and go out, it's hit and miss. I went to the same restaurant a week apart in the Albuquerque area, and it was really good the first time, and a week later it was just okay. So there you go. It depends on the night who showed up for you. But I guess my major point is it's getting better already. And by the time people even see this, it's probably going to be back to what we're used to and our guests are used to. So I had to throw that in. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, fingers crossed that is um, from your mouth to God's ears. Can we get there
Exactly.
from here? And barring a huge spike or the governor shutting us down again, which again, fingers crossed, knock on wood, let's not have that happen again.
Right. Let's not even discuss that one
Okay.
and how difficult that is on a restaurant.
Yeah.
But you asked about food and the environment. You know, again, we've been here a long time. And so you add things to a menu and you subtract things from a menu, and there's some things that are just always there. But we're interesting because of a variety of the menu. Uh, I'd say there's two main areas. One is Mexican food, and we do very well with Mexican food. We do scratch our green and our red, and we initiated something when we opened Peppers. We have a mild green and a hot green, and then a red, which is light to medium, depending on chilies and all that. Very hard to keep Mexican food consistent. We sure learned that, but it can be done. And sometimes you have to make adjustments. But having a mild green and a hot green means they have to be very different. So you have to try and keep that mild green as mild as possible. But if you have the hot, it's going to be smoking hot, and you better be ready. And we really try and warn new guests or out of towners, which we get a lot of out of towners because of the whole UFO phenomenon. But what we recommend, and now so many locals are doing it, order the mild and ask us for a side of hot, which we'll give you, and then put it on to your what you can tolerate in heat, but yet you'll get the flavor of that hot because it's very flavorful. It's just not very edible for people like me, let's say. So that's the way to do it, though. So that's how you do it. You just add it on. So Mexican food is a big part. Peppers, the name kind of indicates that. What it doesn't tell you is, wow, this place is like a steakhouse. food wise, I have a long history. Country Club, the Clubhouse, the first restaurant we ever did, steak and lobster type menu, and I have a lot of history in that. And so we cut our own beef. Grant you, it's only two cuts: ribeye and tenderloin. Now on the ribeyes, we also have that beef aged. Before it gets to us, it's got some, that was a little tough since pandemic because everything's slow to get to you. But with time and patience, we got it to where we want it. And we want it pretty aged. I mean, everybody was 3-4 weeks is fine. No, I want at least 5 weeks, and that's a minimum. And so we have to cut our own beef if you're going to age it. You have to, because you want to age it some more at your place, and then always, front to back, taking the ones that are ready to go and let the others age behind that. So that's an interesting part about a peppers. No one's going to think, oh, peppers, they probably have great steak. No, that's not what's going to come to their mind. The Mexican food, yes, but we're real proud of what we do with beef, including the hamburgers. We have a specific blend that we get all the time uh, from Cisco, which you're very familiar with them. Everybody in our state is, if they're an independent, especially, um, and help with our getting our beef, our ribeyes. We do not age the tenderloins, hence the name. They're already tender, and so we don't. But we still like to see what we're getting, and it's not that hard to peel them and trim them and cut them. And so that's real different for a restaurant, a casual restaurant of our style, is to put so much emphasis into beef and the burgers. And so between those two areas, beef and burgers, and the Mexican food, I'd say, I mean, that's what shines to me. And we do have other things, but they're not on the menu right now. Baby back ribs is something we've been big on. We were the first person in our town, because it was 1980, but I knew about them from Florida, and my father definitely did, and he had some recipes, so we were able to jump on that before they didn't even know what they were in our county anyway, in Chaves County. So we have other things, fajitas, but of course, salads, lunch and dinner, that kind of thing. But the one thing, and it's on a steak thing, we already went over hot and mild green, but we have something called steak au poivre. And you see it in quite a few steakhouses. Um, and the way we do ours, they're all done a little different. And they usually explain it on most menus. And ours, we take cracked pepper and it goes on your filet. We use a filet for this, but if you say I want it on a ribeye, we can do whatever you want. But we're going to crack pepper on that fillet and start broiling it the way you want it, your temperature. Then while that's happening, we are in a saute pan. We are reducing a sauce that includes, let me see if I can do this, heavy cream, uh, white pepper, uh, uh, beef base, and I'm missing one thing. Oh, and the cognac.
Mm.
So it doesn't sound like a lot, but we reduce that, and your steak's cooking, and at the last minute we throw fresh sliced mushrooms in your pan and just warm them up slightly. That sauce goes over your fillet, and
Oh
and
my
that's how
God, my
and that's how we
mouth
do it.
is watering. That is so good. I love steak au poivre, and
Oh,
yeah,
you've
it's
you've got to have
amazing.
ours. You've got to have ours. I
Yeah.
really, I want you to have, and it's not a lunch item, but if we know you're there, because we don't always have sauce ready to go, we may not even have fillets cut at that moment. But if it's possible, we do it at lunch. But if you're there at night, that's what you have to order.
Oh,
And and,
wonderful. Yeah.
and one thing about that, the reason I know about it and our recipe, we had a family of an older couple that always came to our restaurant, and they lived well, now they were moved to Roswell because they were the health issues and getting older, but they were ranchers in Tatum, New Mexico, and had a lot of oil wells on their property. So they were affluent, and they had a son that I didn't know about right away, but they were there so often, I got to know them. And he came to town and they introduced us. At that time, he was still a restaurant owner in Vail, Colorado, and he was the chef of that restaurant. He was the real thing. We got him for the clubhouse, which I guess steak and lobster it was the nicest restaurant at the time as far as Roswell goes. And he turned us on to the steak au poivre recipe, and we've had it ever since. And once we closed the restaurant and did the country club deal, we still used the original clubhouse for catering. But anyway, we stayed with that steak au poivre. That's one that's still on the menu to this day, and it sells very well. So there you go,
Nice.
peppers with a steak like that.
Well, it's pepper, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
that's true.
There you
That
go.
is true.
That's what
Peppers
makes
are
it
part of that
work.
recipe. Yeah, yeah. Good one, Carol.
Well, very good. You know what? We're almost out of time, and I want to make sure that people know how to reach you. Do you guys take reservations?
We do take reservations for 6 or more.
Okay. All right.
We're open
Perfect.
again Monday through Saturday, 11 till not, we'll seat you till 9 at this point. That someday we'll probably go back to 10.
Okay. And do you have a website?
We do. peppers-grill.com, like a dash of salt, whatever. Peppers-grill.com.
Perfect.
Mhm,
All
mhm.
right. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for all of the tips on your food. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get there for that steak au poivre.
You've got to
Um,
do that. You have
yeah,
to.
I absolutely do. Well, and the sauce sounds to die for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh, that's the whole thing. And between the pepper and the sauce, they kind of soften it softens it up a little bit as far as the pepper part of it. It's just perfect together.
nice, nice. All right. Well, I'll be there, and thank you so much, Neil. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you, Carol. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
And I also want to thank our generous sponsors, U.S. Foods, Cisco, New Mexico, Shamrock Foods, Heartland Payment Systems, the Food Industry Self-Insurance Fund, and Benny Keith Foods for their annual sponsorship of the New Mexico Restaurant Association and its programs. Visit nmrestaurants.org to learn more about our Chef's Table sponsors and our association. Thanks for tuning in to New Mexico Restaurants Now. You can watch this and other episodes on the New Mexico Restaurants Now YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to the audio podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. See you soon.